Good afternoon. It's been a minute, but I wasn't going to miss today for anything. Uh, Today is 15 years to the day that we lost a dear friend in the line of duty. Three City of Pittsburgh police officers were lost on April 4th, 2009. Was a Saturday morning. I remember it like it was yesterday. Give you a little bit of a background on this as it pertains to us more directly. So one of our first members was a great guy. Great guy. He worked IT for Bayer Corporation, Central Catholic, class of '92. Duquesne University was as good as they get. I mean, when you say he's a good guy, this is by definition. This was Paul Sciullo, and never. I graduated from Central Catholic in 1981, so I didn't consider myself that old. But he comes to our gym, and he lays it down that he's been accepted to the City of Pittsburgh Police Academy, where he'll be starting, shortly after joining us. And he grew up as an athlete. I mean, this guy was in great shape, ready to go. But he wanted to make sure that when he arrived at the academy that there was no doubt about his performance. So he found us at our first location, came and joined us and trained with us regularly. Regularly. I mean, a very, very good athlete. And, of course, it was kind of funny, I don't know. But he would usually come to the 9 a.m. class. And when I was home between deployments, I was there throughout the day, but 9 o'clock would have been definite for me. And largely, that class was always a heavily female-dominated class. And needless to say, they loved him. I mean, he was just charismatic. He was a good person, and he was very good looking, to say the least. All right, so that class, I mean, I don't recall him ever getting harassed, but I will tell you this: the energy level intensified when he showed up for class. He was very well regarded, by everyone. As don't know anybody who's ever met him who didn't have great things to say. But anyway, so he comes and he was talking to me about this, and I mean, you want to talk about just uncanny understanding. He had a great job, and with a promising future. And in his own words, as he told it to me, he had decided that he wanted to do something more. He wanted to do something impactful, right? That would be a benefit to serve others, and that was his motivation for leaving his job, and that was his motivation for getting in with the city of Pittsburgh. His long-term goal that he had shared with me was that eventually he might play that into federal law enforcement, FBI, something like that. But he was accepted into the City of Pittsburgh Police Academy, and he just, he worked as hard there as he did everywhere else. And he was honor graduate in his class, first in physical fitness, first in academics. I mean, he just really set the mark. And, he did great. He really did. And I just have some notes here so I don't get my dates wrong, and I won't. I don't forget a detail about this, but and I remember when we had that conversation, how he said, that I guess friends and family had asked him, like, why in the world would you give up such a great career path that you have now, to be a police officer? And I remember, okay, this is not funny, but I guess it's a feature that I never noticed on this camera setup, that whenever you wave your hand in a motion and it looks anything like a thumbs up, that you'll get a thumbs up icon on the screen, which is a little bit annoying. Pretty sure there's an easy way to disable that, but regardless, if anybody deserves thumbs up, it's Paul. So I'm going to leave that alone for today. But in that conversation, when he told me that, friends and family were, why would you give up what you've got, to be a police officer? And the only thing I could share with him in that regard was a conversation I had with my father when I dropped it on him that I would not be attending law school after undergrad at the University of Pittsburgh, that instead I had joined the Navy. So, and he had this smile. He had this smile that no matter what the mood was at the time, if something struck him and he flashed that smile, he'd light up the room with it. And I remember when I said that, I said, when I informed my father I would not be attending law school because I joined the Navy, the look on his face, he was like, I get it. So, that was just one more thing that we had in common that we would kind of, commiserate over the years. But so his training with us slowed down a bit, cut back a bit during his time in the academy, because the way the city of Pittsburgh runs it, it's an all-day affair, and it is challenging and it is hard. And he did it. He did it like he did everything else. He did great, and came back and started training with us regularly again when he was a probationary officer, and he was assigned to Zone 5, City of Pittsburgh's Zone 5, which just kind of a side note, when my father was a police officer, he was at Zone 5 also, the Fighting Fifth. And so that was and Zone 5 was geographically, that was a zone where he grew up, right? So that was awesome. Okay, so anyway, we saw each other quite a bit. He was a regular at our gym. He was the best. I mean, that's all I can say about that. So fast forward a little bit, I had come home from deployment. I was in Afghanistan at the time. I'd come home from deployment, and I had about, as I recall, I think I had about 2 weeks, maybe 3, until I had to go back, right, head back to Afghanistan. And he hadn't been around for about 4 weeks or so. And, we'd texting back and forth, and he had this a bit of a flu, I guess it was, but it was enough to keep him out of the gym. And as you all know, I mean, you've ever been down that road, nothing sidelines your training like the flu. So he had taken some weeks off, and I remember it was Friday, and it was April 3rd, and it was nice, mild. The weather was not too bad, but it was a little bit warmer than one would have expected for early April. And our original location was an old automotive garage. So I got in early, had the overhead doors open in the front and the back of the box, and I'm getting a workout up on the board, and it just so happened, things that you never forget, those little nuances. The workout for that day was a CrossFit benchmark workout called the Filthy 50, and it's long, and it's challenging, but it's not the workout that I would want to tackle coming back after having been out for weeks with something like the flu, all right? So who's the first one that walks through the door but Paul? So he walks in, and I turn, and I'm facing the board like so, and the door's to my left, and he walks through the door, and I turn and see him. He just flashes that big smile, right? And he said, he's like, hey, he's like, I'm glad I finally got to see you, And I said, yeah, so am I, because he knew I'd be going back to Afghanistan fairly shortly. But anyway, we're making small talk, and he, as he's walking toward me, he looks at the board, and he just kind of goes, huh. Doesn't change the smile, nothing. He just looks at that workout, and he's like, huh. And that's when, I realized, I was like, well, it's been a minute. It's been some weeks since I was like, wow, buddy. I said, you sure picked the day to come back. And, we had a little bit of a laugh over that, and, did well through the workout. And the next day, Saturday, my rugby club was hosting a clinic for 3 college teams that would be coming into Founders Field here in Pittsburgh, home of the Pittsburgh Harlequin Rugby Football Club, right? So the 3 college teams would be coming in for a clinic that we were hosting the next day. After the clinic, 2 of the games would play one another. The third college team would play us, and we always had a real good turnout at our home field. And oftentimes a lot of our friends from the gym would show up at the games. So, I had asked him, and he told me he was working the next day, but the clinic, I don't remember how long that was supposed to be, and then the first game, so our game wouldn't be until much later. And he said, yeah, you know what? He's like, I'd like to get there, right? So that was the plan. It was a loose plan, but maybe he'd see us at the game, so that was always fun. So the next day rolls around. I'm at the pitch bright and early, and we're getting set up for the clinic with these boys, and doing a great job. And when the clinic slowed down, a couple of us went to prepare the goalposts and get the pitch ready, the field ready for the game, and just so happened to be not tied up with the clinic, crossed over to get the equipment and the goalposts and everything in order, and I'm near my see that. Okay, I'm gonna anyway. The point being, the only reason that's important is, had I not been done with the clinic, crossing over to the field to help get things in order, I would have never been near my phone. So my phone rings, and it's another dear friend of ours from the gym, a mutual friend, and he calls me up, and this was Mike was one of the guys that would normally come to the rugby games, so it was not unusual that he's calling me. Right, I'm thinking that he's confirming the time. See you later. Can I bring anything? That type of thing. And he calls me up, and I said, hey, brother, what's going on? And I hear by the tone of his voice, and all he could manage to say was, Paul's gone. And I remember I was a little bit like, gone where? And as we're talking and he's telling me what's happening, I get a call coming in from my mom. And I said, you know what, Mike, let me call you right back. So I hang up with him. I get my mom on the phone. I grew up in Stanton Heights, right? I grew up about a block over from where this atrocity occurred. So my parents are home. It's Saturday morning. My mom's like, oh, are you listening to the news? Are you aware of what's going on? So she told me what was happening. And in the meanwhile, they're watching it on the news, but they're hearing it live out the front door as well. So yeah, that was just I don't have the words. I really don't have the words. But as it played out, for those of you who don't know, it's about 7 a.m. Saturday morning. There's a 911 call, and it was the mother of the shooter that called 911. Have officers come to the house to get her son out. Okay, and Paul was one of the first officers. If I believe he was the first officer to arrive. At the same time, Officer Stephen Mayhle, he showed up as well. So the two of them approached the front door. Now, I'm not going to drag this out anymore. It's already been, dissected and this and this. I don't point fingers or anything like that. Not now. All right, but the crazy part of it, I think, and I always will, the mother answers the door. She answers the door and she says, get him out of here, motioning back over her shoulder. Now her son had already put on body armor, stacked magazines all around the house, right? Had multiple weapons. He was ready. He was ready to do harm, all right? Whether or not his mother called 911, now allegedly she called 911 and said that he was armed. Are there weapons in the home? Allegedly she said yes. Also, allegedly, and I hate that word, I do, because typically I think people use it when they're trying to. I don't know. I'm not, this I don't care. Right now, it's off the subject. But are there weapons in the house? Yes. But supposedly that information was never relayed to the officers. And knowing Paul, and I didn't know Officer Mayhle, but the city of Pittsburgh Police Academy does not train amateurs. All right, they don't. So I know these men were prepared, and I do believe that their procedures were solid. I do believe that, but I don't think that when you arrive on scene, things it's dynamic. It's a dynamic environment, and in my opinion, if and I put myself in that position, I have. So I respond first. Let's say there's a boom boom boom, police. Woman opens the door, apparently by all accounts, agitated because of having to make the call, but at no point did she give any demeanor like, and this is what was reported. Um, she didn't open the door and run for her life. She opened the door, said, "Would you get him out of here?" And there he is waiting on the other side of the room, fully kitted out like, ready for an assault. So both Paul and Officer Mayhle were hit instantly. Um, Hearing the call go out, there's another officer, senior officer of the three, Officer Eric Kelly, a resident also of Stanton Heights. And this officer was done with night shift, and he was on his way home. He was on his way home to his wife and three children. And in true Zone 5 fashion, he heard the call, and he answered the call. He rolls up on the scene, and well, now the shooter is doing what he intended to do, and he's moving from window to window. And as he heard that vehicle roll up, he opened fire on Officer Kelly and shot him. There was a fourth officer that arrived, and this is straight from the news. It's open source. Officer Timothy McManaway. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Officer Timothy McManaway arrived on scene, and he was attempting to bring Officer Kelly out of harm's way when he was hit. And as you can imagine, as this is unfolding, officers are responding to the scene. It wasn't too long after that more officers, SWAT team members, state, county, they got it locked down. And about 4 hours later, they were able to subdue the shooter and bring him in. But like I said, I mean, it was unbelievable would be an understatement. All right, unbelievable would be an understatement. I mean, and I remember in my mind at that time, I remember thinking, I'm listening to this happening. I'm listening to it on the news. I'm seeing everything I can see, and I had a very active deployment schedule after 9/11, and spent a lot of time overseas, a lot of time overseas, and I was not a support guy. All right, so spent a lot of time overseas, and never in a million years ever would I have expected this type of ambush at home. Not only at home here in the States, but at home for me in my backyard, right? In a block away from where I grew up as a kid, diagonally across the street from where one of my best friends grew up. And during all of that, the loss of three lives, right? The loss of three lives, and one of them, a dear friend of ours. And what's wild about it is when something like that happens, and I don't know, I guess this is human nature, but as digesting it and comprehending it, and you think back, and the things that you'll never forget. He had such a magnetism. Paul had such a an inner strength, for lack of a better word. I mean, I'm kind of stumbling now, but he just he just had this way about him, you know. And I'll never forget. It was 15 years ago. Our son Michael, at that time, was uh, was four. He was 4 years old, well, 3.5, right? And my son at 3.5 was a force of nature. He was like he was like a little tornado. And I think one of the funniest things is, again, during that time, um, largely I was away. So when I would get home, it was like a vacation. Not obviously, I'm home from deployment. So, but I mean, the mood around our house, the vibe, if you will. Um, if the kids were in school, they would still go to school and they would do it. They were little, they were little. But if they weren't, if it was summertime, it was off the hook. It was just dad's home, it's vacation, we're having fun. Now, my daughters, angels, both of them, angels. I remember the first time coming back home from my first deployment, and we went out for lunch. And they're little, they're little, but my wife did a fantastic job with them. And so the waitress comes over and she says, "And what can I get you to drink?" And Alexandra, my oldest, she has her hands folded and she looks up at the waitress with these big brown eyes and she says, "May I please have a Sprite?" And she looks at Emily next, the waitress, and Emily says, "May I please have a Sprite?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like these are like little small adults, with well spoken, well mannered." Same restaurant, different time. I wasn't there. I missed this one. Same restaurant on another occasion. Michael is the little one now, and the girls are as polite as can be. And my son decides to stand up on the seat, on the bench of the booth, I guess you could call it. And he drops his shorts and he moons the people at the booth beside them. And, then he starts to say, I guess it was on the Disney Channel, Mickey Mouse and Friends, something like that. But I guess Donald Duck because he never wore pants. If you think about that, that's a fact. All right, of all the cartoon characters, Donald never wear pants. But I guess he did this. He did this song, and he would sing "Shake Your Peanut" while he would shake his butt. So my son thought it would be funny to drop his pants and moon the people in the next booth. And so I remember sharing this story with Paul, and I wasn't complaining. It was an observation, but I was like, oh my God. Like, and Paul knew the kids because they spent a lot of time at the gym. They would spend a lot of time at the gym. And, of course, with it's CrossFit. So it's very, very family oriented, very community oriented. So, Paul knew the kids and they loved him. And, there I am. I wasn't really by no means complaining about my son, but I was just like, you're not going to believe this. And I told him that story. And again, just in his fashion, in his way, he flashes that big smile. He looks at me and he's like, "Brother, I was the baby in my family. I know exactly what you're talking about." And I, all I could do was laugh. I was just like, yeah, I get that. I understand that. But, you know, to say that he's missed is a gross understatement. All right. I don't have anything to add over that. And as part of our CrossFit journey, um, after things had settled down a bit, I remember not knowing exactly how to proceed, but I contacted CrossFit headquarters, and I remember it as if it were yesterday, not 15 years ago. I remember it if it were yesterday. I wrote to CrossFit headquarters. I sent them an email. And I said, I started off and I said, "Good morning. This is Mike at CrossFit Pittsburgh." And I said, "This is an email that I never thought I would write." And I said, "We recently lost one of our members City of Pittsburgh police officer, lost in the line of duty, and I believe he is well deserving of having a hero workout named after him. So I said, if you'd please tell me how to proceed, I would appreciate it. And in true CrossFit headquarters fashion, they got back to me right away, and their reply was, is what I would have imagined it would be, and the deepest sympathies, and heartfelt communication in return, and I was very impressed with this. All right, the requirements to actually get a hero workout, and I mean, those of you who know me, and I'd be honest with you right now, I have no goddamn intention of apologizing for anything I'm about to say. Not today. All right. I don't mean to offend anybody. I don't mean it like that. I think when you suffer a loss at a community level, it is what it is. It is a heartfelt loss. But I've noticed throughout the community there are memorial workouts that people put out, and we did the same thing. For Paul, we created our own memorial workout. All right, and in true Hero WOD fashion, we took some of the movements that we knew, some of the workout elements that we knew he preferred, that they were his, his go-to, and we created, named one. We named it after his badge number, which was, I mean, we put our heads together, and we thought, what would he like? What could we do to make something memorable? So we did, and we called that one badge number 4179. We, and again, accordingly, the elements were 4 of this, 1 of this, 7 of this, 9 of this, 100-meter sprint, and repeat that for 9 rounds and so forth. So that was quick. That was immediate, and that was at the box level. All right, and what I say this is, that's great, and that's our community acknowledging the loss of one of our own. But my motivation was, here's a man who is fully deserving of community-wide recognition, not just our local box recognition, right? So contacted CrossFit headquarters, and the process fascinated me. But I just, one more thing that I appreciated very much about headquarters was, this is serious, and it's taken serious. So the things that they wrote back to me, and they were like, well, we need 3 things from you in order to do that. 1, we need permission from his family. And I thought that was completely understood, completely appropriate. He's a dear friend of ours, but good Lord, with this thumbs up thing, now it's getting annoying. Anyway, I'm assuming you all can see that on your end as well, because if you can't, it's it might even be funnier if you can't see what I'm talking about. But anyway, I appreciated that part of the process was, we're not going to do this without approval and permission from his family. So I said, okay, I made a note of that. Second, and again, very, very logical, we had to get the approval of his command unit, understanding that. And then third and final, which was already given, was that we, as the hosting CrossFit, as his home box, we would have to essentially nominate him for it, which, they put in their email, like, we will take this, your email here as your nomination for him to have a hero WOD. You're sponsoring it. So, okay, great. So over the next days, I sent out email to the City of Pittsburgh Police Department, asked for their approval. I spoke with his parents, asked for their approval, and shortly after that, the Hero Workout Paul was created. So, needless to say, this morning, we put it out there for our group. We put both workouts on our website so that it's user's choice. You can do one or the other or both, but it's the least we can do. The least we could do for him. And one thing I do remember also, and I'll never forget, very, very dear friend. Met him in person for the first time. I want to say it was 2005, maybe. I think it was 2005 at CrossFit Boston, and our first T-shirts that we had made for the box. We had it with a navy blue, very, very simple. I'm not even sure we had a logo at the time, but they were navy blue T-shirts, CrossFit Pittsburgh, on the left chest, and then on the back in quotation marks, it said "just a little kick in the nuts," right? CrossFit Pittsburgh, just a little kick in the nuts, which is an old Navy expression. So, pardon me for sniffling. I'm unprepared here, but anyway, so that's we go to CrossFit Boston, my wife and I, for our first L1 certificate course. And we get there, and one of the instructors who was present had been around a bit longer than we had, and he was there as a trainer. T.J. Cooper, dear friend and brother, T.J. Cooper, CrossFit West. And so he emails me after the course, and the subject line says, "I want my kick in the nuts," parentheses, T-shirt that is. So needless to say, that was one of the first kick in the nuts T-shirts we ever sent out to anyone outside of our immediate Pittsburgh area. But so when we posted this, what had happened with Paul and the hero workout in his memory, one of the first replies I got was from TJ, and he was a training officer at his local police academy. And the caption that he sent with a photo said, "Tears in the sweat, my brother." And he had his academy class do Paul's workout that day. And as greatly appreciated and certainly heartfelt. So, man, you want to talk about surreal. I would hope that no one we know in our community at CrossFit, and the city of Pittsburgh police, any other police, law enforcement, would be wonderful if we get through the rest of our lives without ever experiencing loss of an officer, a colleague. That would be wonderful. It would also be foolish to think that that's possible. All right. That's why I believe then, I believe now, and I will believe to the end of days that the least you can do is show some support. The least you can do is show support to the men and women who go out there every day and lay it on the line for you. Right? You can't do that, then we cannot be friends. But having said all that, I just Paul, we miss you, brother. We think about you all the time. All the time. We miss you. And I'll see you on the other side, brother.